the third iteration of the Allison Miner Lecture Series. I am Laura Keller, the Hellas Foundation Digital Collections Manager for the Jazz Heritage Foundation Archive. I'm so happy to welcome those of you in this room and watching on the live stream to the celebration of shared culture and community. Allison Miner, for whom the series is named, was one of the founders of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and also the founder of the Jazz and Heritage Archive. In 1988, she created the Music Heritage Interview Stage at Jazz Fest, and in 1989, she began recording those panels, which now number over 1,000 in our collection. At that time, she was keenly aware that Jazz Fest history was dispersed and at risk of being lost. Her efforts to collect for the archive helped enrich the celebration of the 25th festival in 1994, just before her premature passing at the age of 46. The foundation is celebrating Allison this evening and her endearing contribution to Louisiana and the New Orleans community. Miner was an advocate for education, and the fellowship research grants are an extension of this work and encourage use of the collections that we have at the archive. Before I invite Jazz and Heritage Advisory Council member Kelly Dixon up here to introduce this evening's fellow, Dr. Rachel Carrico, let me tell you how this evening will proceed. After Rachel presents, there will be a panel discussion, followed by the Truth Brass Band and the Grand Marshal leading the audience out to the reception while Rachel signs the books that she is here to introduce this evening. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. My task on this evening is to give you some more information about why we are here. This evening, we are here to celebrate the release of Dancing the Politics of Pleasure at the New Orleans Second Line by Allison Miner Fellow Rachel Carrico. Rachel is an assistant professor of dance studies at the University of Florida. She lived in New Orleans for several years, and she's an active member of the Ice Divas Social and Pleasure Club. I've had the pleasure of reading her latest work, and it's a wonderful tribute to our beloved second line culture. Each chapter, for me, was a flashback of my upbringing as a native New Orleanian born in the Treme. It brought me back to the days of Hunter's Field, when I was in Tambourine and Fan, Bucket Men. Then as a teenager, riding a horse in the Money Wasters second line. To now, as an adult, teaching second line history and culture. There was special attention given to the organizations, the life-changing events that spurred the evolution of second line, and the culture bearers that lent their voice to this work, especially my mom, the late Barbara Lacen Keller. The Professor Carrico, as I call her, really did her homework. And I really enjoy this work. I'm sure she is eager to share with you her perspective and moments that resonated with her. But for just one brief second, can we stand and congratulate fellow Carrico on this great work?
Kelly. And thank you all so much, as I've been saying to each of you as you come in. Thank you for getting out of bed and coming out in the world and coming to spend this evening with us tonight. I'm truly grateful. And I also want to say huge thanks to all the folks at the Jazz and Heritage Foundation, most of all to Rachel Lyons, who invited me to give this talk and has been a part of this research journey for a long time, who's really gone above and beyond in many steps of the process. So thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you to Kia Robinson, who is responsible for organizing this entire event, to Jason Doyle and Kendra Thompson and the whole team for acing all of the things technical, audio, visual, and with the streaming. So thank you all for all your work. I also wanted to just check and see, speaking of audio and visual, was there a slideshow playing when you all came in and sat down? Yes, okay, great. Okay, I wanted to make sure that that was happening. So the biggest thanks goes to all of the people who are in that slideshow, and many of them are wearing these boutonnieres that are here tonight. One of those people is Edward Buckner, who I saw come in. Come on down, Ed. We got a seat for you right here. We got a seat for you right here up front. It is without those folks who you saw their images as you were coming in, without the generosity of those people sharing their memories and stories and perspectives of me, and trusting me to document it and share it with you, there would be no book. So the biggest thanks goes to all of them. And one more thank you is to the person who made these lovely boutonnieres, who is Big Queen Noki, or Winoka Boudreaux Richardson, who, yes, who couldn't be here tonight, but her spirit is with us in the form of her artistry. So I would like to start tonight by, and I'm going to start my timer, I would like to start tonight by asking you all who are in this room, when you think of the words second line, when you hear that, what comes to mind? What does it evoke for you? Just shout it out and I'll repeat it here for the folks live streaming. Say it again. Music, joy, freedom, dancing, tuba, expression, celebration, community, freedom, change. Second line shorty, shameless self-promotion. Hats off. Identity, outfits, there was one down here. Heritage, culture. Happiness, yes. Fright? Pride, thank you. Pride, I was like, ooh, pride, yes. Creativity, yes. Free, dedication, absolutely. New Orleans, self-expression. Okay, I'm gonna cut y'all off. You all are the best students I have ever had. And so I'm gonna say thank you, but seriously, thank you. Yes, all of this. And after about 10 years of talking to second liners about why and how they do what they do, 5 words, many of them you've already named, kind of rose to the top out of these conversations. And those are community, spirit, do what you wanna, freedom, and home. And these concepts form the 5 core chapters of the book. And before I get into some of the meat of the book tonight, I'm gonna advance this slide for real, there we go. Before I get into some of the meat of the book, I wanna share with you a little bit of my journey of writing it. So I came to New Orleans for the first time in 2007, 2 years after Katrina. And that's when I attended my first second line. I was living in New York City at the time. I'm not from New York, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, but I was living in New York then. And I came here to volunteer with a collective of artists who were, got connected to them through some of my mentors in New York, and this group of artists was putting on a site-specific performance in the neighborhood of Lakeview, appropriately named Lake Views, and some of those people who are part of that are in the audience tonight. And while I was here, a friend took me to a second line. And although I had been dancing my entire life, none of my studio training prepared me for that experience. I moved to New Orleans about a year after that. At the time, I was working for a nonprofit arts organization in New York City, wanting to learn about arts and education and social justice, and I chose to move here at that point in time to learn from the artists and culture bearers here who were leading community-based responses to disaster and disaster recovery. I arrived here in 2008, just as the city was shifting out of a more immediate phase of brick and mortar recovery and into a phase of more infrastructural and cultural rebuilding. I began working in arts administration and as a teaching artist, and that work brought me in contact with Edward Buckner, who many of you know as the president of the original Big Seven Social Aid and Pleasure Club, and at the time he was also directing a community center in the 7th Ward called The Porch, which I know some of you also are familiar with. And as I got more involved in The Porch, I got more interested in what the Big Seven and the Red Flame Hunters were doing, and it's due to Edward's generosity in inviting me into the Big Seven's year-round activities that he and his organization factor heavily into the stories that this book tells. So my presence at parades over the years also led me to eventually join a second line group myself, as Kelly mentioned, and this was a prospect that I never entertained until the invitation was extended. That happened when I met Katina Braxton Robertson, who's the president and CEO of the Ice Divas Social and Pleasure Club, and she invited me to join in 2014. And by the way, we'll be coming out in 2025, the first Sunday after Mardi Gras, so for those of you who are like itching to get back to second line after the Mardi Gras break, come out and join us that Sunday. So my multiple investments at the second line are often mapped out spatially at the parade. Once a year, I'm in the main line. Most of the time, I'm in the second line, alongside the ropes, or as I prefer, behind the band. And I'm also frequently in the third line. And this is a term that the photographer Michael P. Smith used in 1990 to describe the scholars and photographers orbiting the parade. And writing 8 years before Smith, the cultural critic and activist and poet Kalamu Ya Salam reflected on the presence of white documentarians, specifically at a funeral. To Salam, they looked, quote, at best curious, at worst like vultures, always outside the action, even when they were in the middle of the happenings, end quote. Salam's comment poignantly evokes the social distance that has historically separated white scholars and our appreciation of Black culture from the realities, including the beautiful and the sometimes violent realities of Black life. And I don't pretend to have closed this distance or resolved this tension. It's not resolvable. But it's an awareness of that that has from the beginning motivated the way that I've engaged with the people who have entrusted me to document their culture and invited me as a guest into it. And my greatest hope is that I've done some justice to their memories and perspectives and to the beauty and importance of the second line tradition. One way that I've attempted to do this is by bringing many different voices into the book to evoke the collective experience of every parade. First-person accounts of participants meticulously describe how and why they dance, and these come from in-depth interviews that I've conducted with more than 60 individuals over the years. Not all 60 appear in the book, but about 20 of them do. And 6 of these appear as interludes, kind of extended transcripts in between the chapters. And these are actually the 6 interviews that I conducted while I was a fellow with the Jazz and Heritage Foundation in 2017. And the full interviews are now held at the archive. And the videos and transcripts are available for everyone to access on YouTube. And those links are available through the book's companion website, along with I believe about 6 other interviews where there's audio recordings and full transcripts of all of those interviews that are up on the book companion website. And I want to thank all of those people who agreed to make their full interviews publicly available to have that open archive as well. So besides collecting voices for the archive, I also spent a lot of time digging around in what was already there. There we go. Sifted through biographies, maps, magazines, newspapers, listened to video recordings and oral histories, looked at photographs and the personal papers of individuals like Tom Dent and Leonard Burns. And along the way, I listened to plenty of interviews conducted at the Allison Miner stage at Jazz Fest. And in addition to interviewing people and sitting in archives, I also spent a lot of time dancing in order to write this book at parades, at nightclubs, social aid and pleasure club events, festivals, even the occasional second line dance class. And through all of this activity, I was trying to paint a picture of the importance of dancing within the second line tradition, in much the same way that brass band music has received kind of critical attention from scholars and critics over the years. And so what conclusions did I reach? What is the importance of dance in the second line tradition? Well, to put it kind of simply, it's the primary way that people participate in the parade, and so it's the primary mechanism for building community, catching the spirit, doing what you wanna, fighting for freedom, and claiming home. And so tonight I'm gonna focus on just two of these themes to give you a flavor of some of the things in the book: community and spirit. And we're gonna begin with community.
But you gotta stay with them.
Oh, no. Let's see. Maybe, can my audiovisual people help me get to the slide of just community? I heard the next slide, Katina's voice coming in, but we're not there yet.
But you gotta stay.
Nope. Colin, can you help?
But you gotta stay with them and keep them interested in doing things throughout the year and not just participate.
We're getting a sneak peek of what's next. Oh, almost. Back one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, ask any social aid and pleasure club member about why they do what they do, and before long, you will hear the word community in their answer. Many see their annual parades in and of themselves as a service to their communities, but club members often point out that they're about more than parading, and they also provide assistance to their communities year-round. Some sponsor drives to collect and distribute school supplies and children's coats. Others visit nursing homes, deliver meals to the unhoused, or simply lend money to members who need to pay their bills. In a variety of ways, social aid and pleasure clubs position themselves to help as needs arise. The clubs are organized, visible, and members often see themselves as role models in their communities. So I'm going to share some reflections on this topic of community from some club members, beginning with Katina Braxton Robertson. No.
But you gotta stay with them and keep them interested in doing things throughout the year and not just participate in that day you parade, but you gotta give back to the community at some point and somehow. And that's what our focus really is. It's not about just parading that day. It's about giving back to the community and getting youths involved. I want to pull more younger girls and young adults into it and give them something to do besides just hanging out and, get them involved in the community.
So that was 10 years ago, and I'd like to say that Katina has made good on that goal, and we now have a good number of young people parading with us every year. So next we'll hear from Gerald Plattenberg, member of the 9 Times.
Well, we believe in kids and family first. We believe in that, so the first thing we have is
Well, we believe in kids and family first. We believe in that, so the first thing we have is a Mardi Gras. We do our big cookout on Dumaine and Claiborne, and we've been doing that for about 15 years now, and it's been, it's been a big draw. And we feed everybody. It don't matter where you're from, who you is. Come over there, get something to eat. We feed everybody. We've been doing that for like 15 years now. And our second event, which coming up, is for the kids. Is the Easter egg hunt. We give a good big Easter egg hunt on Sampson Park. We give baskets, we give candy, and we also interact with the kids and give them we try to give them touch out to them. Kind of see where they at in school. We discuss a lot of stuff with them, counseling in other words. and let them know, you know, if y'all want to be part of this, you know, this is what you got to do. And we just try to be positive, give them positive, or lead them in a positive direction.
I also see this value taking shape in the parades themselves. This is in the parade's ability to absorb everyone in who wants to join, doing away with categories of performer and audience, in the ways that dancers share steps between family and friends instead of in a kind of formal dance studio in a paid-for dance class. And communal values are also expressed in the ways that parades organize bodies in space and in time, and choreography is really nothing more than that, organizing bodies in space and in time. In nearly all African diaspora dance forms, an emphasis on the collective is expressed in the formation of the circle. And second lining is no exception. Now, the second line is a procession, so it moves in more of a column, a line, you might say, more than a circle. But the dancing collective moves forward as an imagined, if narrowed circle, orbiting around the band. And no matter where dancers position themselves, on the sidewalk side, on the neutral ground side, behind the band, in front of the club, the band organizes the crowd to be cohered by the beat and to move in relationship to the music. Each person improvises their own combination of steps and unique movements, but the collective is unified by the music and often by a shared history and/or a common purpose. Now, literal circles form often when the parade pauses, either behind the band or peripherally on a driveway or in a parking lot. The group will widen into a ring, encouraging and challenging one or two dancers in the middle by clapping, shouting, playing cowbells and tambourines. So you might have seen there were some small children looking on there in the edge of the circle, right? And this is often the domain in which children's footwork skills are honed as they step into the center to dance to the supportive yet demanding comments of family members and friends. And if we think about the second line's roots to the ring shout and to other circle dances practiced in Congo Square, this comes as no surprise. Over the centuries, second lining's communal values have blossomed from its roots in mutual aid societies and benevolent associations. And I'd like to listen to another club president, Tamara Jackson Snowden, reflecting on that.
You know, when the clubs were initially started, it started as benevolent societies. And that's with Young Men Olympian. They started as benevolent societies, and then we started with the social and pleasure clubs. But the idea was to help your community, help your membership who couldn't afford burials and funerals and other expenses. You formed these clubs that were actually aiding each other and the neighborhoods in which they parade. Now the aiding portion has changed just because the needs of the community has changed.
So Tamara is speaking here not only as the president of the VIP Ladies and Kids Social Aid and Pleasure Club, but also as the director of Silence is Violence. And she spoke in our interview about her firsthand knowledge about one of the necessary social aid efforts today is to address the effects of gun violence, because it constitutes one of the most vital needs amongst clubs, musicians, and their families. And at the same time, leaders in the second line community and their advocates are constantly called upon to defend their cultural practice from accusations of stoking violence, especially if conflict erupts at or near a parade. Now, cultural advocates rightly point out that these episodes are not a defining characteristic of second lines themselves, but rather a consequence of deep, long-standing systemic issues in the neighborhoods where the parades take place. And rather than being a cause of violence, social aid and pleasure clubs are in fact one of the most effective antidotes to violence in their communities. For example, following a shooting at their 2013 parade, the original Big Seven issued a powerful statement on their Facebook page. Crime and violence in New Orleans is a systemic problem, and we strongly believe that safeguarding our cultural heritage helps to address the roots of violence. We are a cross-generational organization, ages 5 to 70. Our young people grow up in this culture, are fed by it, and feel loved, supported, and connected in ways that build real security. That's crime prevention. Yes, that deserves an applause. The Big Seven statement demands that its readers acknowledge the organization's work to address the structural violence at the root of interpersonal violence. And when the Facebook post was reprinted in the Times-Picayune, it widened the reach of the club's work to disentangle the notion of a second line from the notion of violence from those outside the cultural community. The Big Seven statement embraced what the Black feminist scholar Bell Hooks calls a love ethic. By this, yeah, Bell Hooks can get an applause as well, yes. And by this, she means refuting individualism in favor of the communal, assuming that, quote, everyone has the right to be free to live fully and well. This love ethic was also on display a year later when the Big Seven's 2014 parade was blessed by rain. We can hear it, but we can't see it. Should we keep trying? Okay, here's Jason. Jason can do everything. Yes, thanks, Jason. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Jason. Yeah. Okay. So the club came out of Edward Buckner's home on Elysian Fields, as they usually do, with Buckner appearing very last. And he stood at the top of the stairs with his arms wide open, white handkerchief in one hand. And as I was standing there watching, I imagined that he was holding the club and the crowd and the day in his arms. In a single gesture, it seemed to me he was receiving praise and recognition, giving thanks for the moment, and welcoming the rain as a kind of baptismal rebirth. The rain did not discourage many in the club or its community to parade that day. In fact, we embraced the raindrops as baptismal water, healing the community's pain and blessing the parade's spiritual capacities. Now I want to talk about that handkerchief for a moment. It's a concrete example of the ways in which spiritual elements imbue the secular second line. It links contemporary paraders to practices of the past. And now, there are many ways we could talk about where it comes from, but at least two stories about it is that its origins can be found in Congo Square, where waving the white handkerchief was a way of purifying the air. I've also been told that it can symbolize the releasing of doves at a ceremony. And although many second liners today often do away with the symbolic handkerchief and adopt the utilitarian sweat towel, it still makes appearances. And sacred elements like these permeate these weekly celebrations, which is not uncommon in dance practices in the African diaspora, where divisions between the earth and the spirit world, or the secular and the sacred, remain fluid. And so we're now into the second theme of the spiritual. The spiritual aspects of the second line tradition are perhaps the most evident in the funeral. But what about during a purely celebratory parade, when the music is more hip-hop than hymn, when the dancing is happening at 2 a.m. in a nightclub? Well, many of you know from personal experiences that yes, spiritual moments happen in these settings too. And to reference Kalamu Ya Salam again, in New Orleans, the streets remain a natural venue of spiritual expression, holding the profane and the sacred all at once. So I want to share with you, again, some of these experiences with spirit from second liners' own words. We're going to hear from Katina again.
I follow the second line from the beginning to the end. I mean, it's like an addiction at some point. When you out there, you hear the beat. I can go to any instrument, tuba, drum, trumpet, whatever. I mean, I can dance to any beat. And it's like, when you hear it, it's just that you just got to go with it. It's just something that you just become a whole new person when you're out performing and dancing and you hear the music. It's like just you being you. You step out of your body into another body and you just enjoy yourself.
So Katina's experience of being both in her body and transcending it at the same time was echoed by lots of people I talked to. I hear that it resonated with lots of people in the room as well. And another one of those people was Wellington Ratcliffe Jr., better known to many of you as Skelly, or Skelly Well. And now Skelly is one of the several second liners who parades in his wheelchair, and his signature dance style features dexterous maneuvers with his chair and pulsing rhythms in his upper body. And when he's really feeling the spirit, he will even lift himself out of the chair and hang onto a pole or crawl on his hands. And when he's moved, he dances hard, and this is often a signal that he is having one of these sort of transcendent or transformative experiences, and he describes it this way.
I tell people I could be out in the crowd of 1,500 people, and I don't see them people. All I hear and see is that band, and that's where I want to be, behind that band, listening and feeling that beat. I can have 1 million people with cameras. I'm not looking at cameras. I'm not feeling no camera. I ain't trying to frown, pose unless it's a still picture. But when I'm in the music, my mind is like that experience. Some people say I had that outer body experience. My body could be right here, but my spirit. You know what I'm saying? I'm flying above the whole second line. That's my spirit right there. I'm like, and you see the expression on my face. Say, boy, he going ham. People like, man, Skelly. Boy, he be cutting up. And that's not just to be for show. That's how I be feeling. When I'm feeling the music, you're going to see me dance.
Yeah, Skelly and applause. So Katina and Skelly were talking about dancing during parades, but wherever footwork travels, it brings its sacred roots along, not just into the streets, but into bar rooms and nightclubs as well. And I want to highlight just one of those nightclubs, the Glass House. All right, so who in here remembers the Glass House? Who was, oh yes, look at all those hands, yes. So as you all know, and probably many of the rest of you know as well, the Glass House was a tiny bar room in the third ward where the Dirty Dozen Brass Band and later the Rebirth Brass Band played a weekly set from the late 1970s to the early 1990s. And during its heyday, it was the place to be. So this was where a revolution in brass band music occurred, a revolution in dancing to brass band music, and in fact, those two things pushed each other in their aesthetic experimentation. And the effects of what the revolution that happened in that place are still evident at every parade today. And its importance attracted lots of celebrities to come check out what was happening at the Glass House, and filmmakers, including the folklorist Alan Lomax, who filmed it in 1982, and that footage appears in his film Jazz Parades. And that's where the YouTube footage I'm about to show you comes from. clap. We can do that, yes. So the Glass House was also memorialized by a more local figure, the author Tom Dent. And he wrote a screenplay with Michael Goodwin in 1983 called Second Line. It was never published or produced, but the manuscript lives at the Amistad Research Center on Tulane's campus. And in the first scene of the film, as Dent imagined it, it takes place at the Glass House with the Dirty Dozen playing. And here's how he describes the dancing. All around young men and an occasional young woman, and we can talk about that occasional young woman part if people want to in the Q&A, are whirling, dropping into sudden knee bends, spinning other dancers at random, falling flat on their faces, flipping over and over in time to the music, imitating animals, and letting their bodies respond to whatever old and powerful spirit moves them. He, and he's speaking about Leroy, who's the protagonist of the film, he grabs the backs of empty chairs, kicks up his feet behind him, floats unsupported except by the music in midair for as long as he wants to. He picks up another dancer who keeps right on dancing and carries him across the floor and puts him down. He brings one of his feet around, seeming to knock his knees out from under him, sinks to his knees as lightly as a feather. And so Dent's description, although fictionalized, captures the way that spirit moved people at the Glass House, and it suggests why it and nightclubs before it and after it served as a joyful refuge from the economic, political, and social struggles that its black patrons faced every other day of the week. So the absolute joy that radiates from Dent's written description and from the footage we just watched, this is one part of the pleasure the title of the book references. There are so many pleasures in Second Line. The satisfaction of nailing a move or a step you've been working on. Pride in your community. The defiant joy of owning the streets. The thrill of dancing on a rooftop above the crowd. The relief of dropping the weak stressors, the groundedness of connecting to ancestors, the ecstasy of having an out-of-body experience, and many more. And of course, my choice of that term, pleasure, rather than joy or ecstasy or any other term, comes from the names of the parading group themselves, from Social Aid and Pleasure Clubs. But I titled the book Dancing the Politics of Pleasure, and so what do I mean by the politics of pleasure? And I'm going to conclude tonight with a few words on that. As I hope is evident by now, I'm using politics in a way that perhaps is quite different than the way we all might be thinking about politics today. I'm thinking about it as kind of like a little p politics, to name the everyday negotiations of power that occur when thousands of African Americans command public space with music and with movement. And one may look at a Second Line and see nothing but a party going on, a distraction from real political work, a frivolous activity, maybe something even somewhat not respectable or degrading. But another way to think about it, and the argument that the book makes, is that pleasure can be real political work as a strategy of survival and resistance. And this point of view is not original. It has a long history in Africana studies and in Black feminist thought, among other thought traditions. And this point of view was recently, just to lift up one recent example, from Imani Perry, who's an African American studies scholar. And following George Floyd's murder in 2020, she wrote an essay for The Atlantic magazine. And in it, she claims that Black music, dance, and language are no less than a testimony to the grace of living as protest, a refusal of the terms of anti-Blackness. She writes, quote, "Blackness is an immense and defiant joy." And by thinking about dance and politics together, I'm not arguing the second lining or any other dance form can by itself cause change in other social arenas. Parades can never accomplish what can be achieved by voting, boycotting, protesting, community organizing, but it does have a power. It has a power to enlarge our sense of what is possible. And this phrase comes from a dance scholar, Randy Martin, who argues that dance has the power to enlarge the sense of what is possible in social life. Second lines enlarge the sense of what is possible in so many ways, and if we pay attention, they can expand how mainstream or dominant culture might think about kinship, about economic circulation, about property ownership, and much more. So that's some of what I mean by the politics of pleasure in the context of the second line, and a taste of what's in the book and in the interview material, much more of which is available on the website. And to continue this conversation, I'm going to invite up my friends Edward Buckner and Katina Braxton Robertson to join me on stage. Okay, is this on? It is? It's on? Oh. Okay, okay, got it. So Ed, to me it's really important we use the mic so the people on the live stream can hear, even if the people in the room could hear you without it. On the live stream, they couldn't hear us without it. All right. Okay, here we are. We're live. So we're going to chat up here for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And I see we've got when we get to that point, we've got a microphone in the back on a stand. Rachel Lyons is waving her hand back by it. And even if you're one of those people that's like, I have a loud voice, I don't need a microphone. You know who can't hear you with a loud voice is the people who are watching at home on the live stream, unless you use the microphone. So please go use the microphone if you have a question. Okay, so Katina and Ed, folks have gotten to know a little bit about you through the presentation, but I'd love for you to introduce yourselves as well, and along with anything you want to include in that introduction that I haven't already mentioned.
Well, my name is Edward Buckner. I am the president of the original Big Seven. I am the founder of the Red Flame Hunters All-Youth Indian Tribe. And I'm just tired. I was at home building, I'm building a new place for the Indians in the Second Line Club. And it's just, I just barely got here. The plumber just took forever. But that's who I am. I'm just Ed Buckner, and I'm just somebody trying to work in the community. And my idol, Greg Davis, he was somewhere in here. That's all I wanted to be, was like Greg Davis. His brother, Larry Davis, and I, we went to Bell behind Greg. I lived in the Sampanoff Project. I was supposed to go to Phillips Junior High, but I followed Greg. Greg was great already. He was just a hell of a trumpet player. But thank y'all for having me up here tonight. That's my introduction.
Good evening. My name is Katina Braxton Robertson, the CEO of Ice Divas, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. And I want to thank Rachel as a friend and a sister. Thank you very much.
So I have to confess, I thought and thought and thought about what questions to sort of ask you all. And I called each of you today, and I'm like, what should we talk about? And I still don't really have anything. So I think I just wanted to open it to you to, after you know, what I've shared tonight, just to open it up to anything you want to elaborate on that I kind of touched on, things you want to add, questions you want to ask each other. So that is my feeble attempt to toss it to you.
Well, my question to you, Ed, is that you've been performing and parading in the Second Line Club way much longer than I have. What inspired you to keep going?
Well, that's come back to Belody, Greg Davis. You know, Greg used to march at Andrew J. Bell, and I wanted to be like an Andrew J. Bell Crusader. I really wanted to be a Crusader. And I lived near Phillips Junior High, Vikings, and I just couldn't do it. You know, I wanted to move, and I wanted to be in a band that moved and had motion, and I couldn't march like that. I just couldn't do it. And so we followed Greg, and you know, it was worth it. It was worth it. We got to learn the discipline of doing something together with everybody, but learning to have the discipline to bring everybody together. And so through those things, I just want to teach. I want to dance and teach some more. I want to put my Indian suit on and teach some more. So what keeps me going is basically just community efforts and knowing that the work is not over. Now that I have a new president, I really know my work is not over because I got to get things in my community back right. So I'm just working hard. The only thing I can tell you, the more you love the culture, you love the music, then the thing is my whole house, my uncle Smokey Johnson, my cousin Wein White, and I got my sister Lois with Troy and James and stuff like that. You couldn't help but being in a family like that and coming up in music. I mean, you grow up in it. My grandson I look at now, he's working on his Indian suit. He's 7 years old. But this is what happens in those households. So you be dancing and you be thinking, well, I'm going to quit this year. Like I had a heart attack. I've been sick. I've had a stroke. Then I come back from that. I was suffering with the stomach. And I come back. But you know what happens? Only thing I could do is lay in the sick bed and say, I got to get the second line together. I got to take and make these Indian suits. You know, I just have a job before me. And it's way more than myself. You know, I've been put on this earth to do something. And my due is not to sit on the sideline and talk about it, but have friends like Squealy and Leo, guys I can call and talk about things. Even when I'm sick, Leo is always there. So I get my energy from them guys. I call myself helping. They be helping me. We helping the children. The children excited, got all kind of problems in school and everything. I can't get old. I can't be sick. If you love this culture, you just keep going. I'm telling you, just keep going. You die. That's why the parade be so big when you're dead. People don't leave your house for 2 weeks. Come on, could you imagine that? You don't need me to keep talking. Now let somebody else talk, because I could do this all night. I really can. You know, I got friends in this audience that really helped me along, that taught me how to sit down and talk to people.
I bet you have a good question for Katina, though.
What gets you up every day? You go to Sujan Water Board, work hard all day, then in the evening time, you got the task of putting the club and all of that together, which happens all day while you're at work also. What keeps you going?
I think about Big D. So Rachel lives out of state. We all work. I have a family. I take care of my grandkids. That phone ring more than you can imagine. My husband be saying, don't they think we need time together? It's the grandkids, and the grandkids know once they call me, I'm there. The strength comes from the grandkids, my husband, and the club. And it's all around family. And family makes me happy. As long as they're happy, I'm happy. So I try to keep everyone happy.
I'll ask one last thing if either of y'all want to sort of riff on this, and then we'll open it up to the people in the room. So tonight I brought up just 2 of those 5 themes, which are just 5 themes that I picked, right, after talking to people. There's so many others that, that you could bring up to talk about the second line, and especially the way that we experience it through dancing, right, and through experiencing movement and music. Do you have, like a favorite memory or something that really like captures. I mean, we kind of heard from you, Katina, of that experience of stepping into this whole other body. But do you have like a memory, a story for you that just kind of crystallizes that joy, that exhilaration, that thing that does keep you going, planning and doing the hard work and settling disputes and raising the money and dealing with, there's so much hard work you do all year long. And could you share with us just some memory that sort of crystallizes that pleasure part of it for you, that joy, that exhilaration?
That joy is the day we parade, and when you step out of them doors, and everybody is out there looking, watching, cheering, and it's your time, your day to enjoy and have a great time and just be you. And that's what makes you go from year to year and say, okay, we got to do this again. The day after we parade, I'm like, what's next? Let's get the colors. Let's do this. Let's do that. So that's what keep me going. We get through that year. Let's move on to the next.
Ed, what about you?
Myself, what's my most memorable moment in parading so far is it was storming, raining. No second line club goes out in the rain. Let's get that clear. Our Indians don't go out in the rain. You're not going to mess up everything. And myself, I know I've been mentally ill some long time ago. The rain is storming, the police saying, hey, you don't want to go. I'm telling them, I'm still thinking about it. I'm leaving out of this house. And I got the spirit of Squealy, he behind me. I got Leo right there. They ready, they fired up. And I said, we going. We leaving. It still was raining. Now, believe me, it wasn't drizzling. It was storming like you seen on the video. It was truly storming, raining. We went out there and had the best time ever in my life dancing with them fellas and them ladies. We got to Galvin Street. Y'all wouldn't believe it. We don't know, Miro. They were under the bridge on the ground in the rain, rolling. Oh, my God, y'all, this was a second line moment forever. Like they say, a Kodak moment. Oh, but that's what keeps me going. A long time ago, I went to Bell School, John Mack. I danced, and then a long time ago, I've been lost to dancing because I lost the legs. But I watched Squealy in front of me for years. I'll come out the door and stand up and say, this is our work, this is how hard we work, this is what we're putting on. But Squealy in front of me, cutting up, just doing all kinds of things. And that's all I had to do was come out the door. I couldn't top that. But that's the things that keeps me going, And then I've had great measures with, like I had the porch, and I had places and people that I was able to work with to get to this point. We even used to have Rachel sitting on the floor in there sewing and everything, gluing stuff together. I just never forget them days. My house was like a shotgun on two sides, and we had one room cut open here and that one, and Rachel would be right there with us. I'm telling you, she earned every book she writes. She's not lying. She's been there, I'm telling you. That's just the joy of it, though. I do a lot of work with this and planning these parades, making sure that everybody's prepared, the clothes are right, ordering everybody's stuff. There's a lot that's put into it. But on parade day, I never worry about the labor part of it. I forget about all of that. It's really, truly the joy and the camaraderie of brotherhood, the trust that people have you to hold a lot of their money and make sure that you purchase and do the things in order the way it should be done. So, yes, if I die and come back, I don't want to be a fly and all that stuff. I want to be second lining again,
I feel like that's a great note to turn it over to the crowd. All right, so if anybody has a question they want to ask or anything they want to share, Rachel has a microphone here.
I just want to say, I think that perhaps you should add healing to a circle.
Had what?
Healing.
Healing.
Hi.
I moved to New Orleans in January, and I've been on a few second lines, and I've loved the culture, and I'm getting to know the culture, and I have high respect for the Black Mascan Indians, you know. Your culture moves me so much, you have no idea. I've seen a few of you perform. I'm going to start crying in a minute, but I won't. But question I want to ask, I'm sorry, I have so much respect, I love it. Where does because I'm still learning, where does the culture overlap with the second line?
Well, it actually doesn't overlap.
Oh, okay.
It's just that some of the Black Mascan Indian events are on days of second lines. So we've learned to share the streets with those groups on those days. But we can't control the timing and the dating of everything, because a lot of times the city will put you on a spot that you have to just be on a date with somebody. But that's both clubs' dates. That's the Black Mascan Indians dates, and that's the Social Aid and Pleasure Club date. So you have to share it and figure out how you get the most out of the police and everybody.
Okay, can you elaborate as well on what you're doing to help the Mascan Indians more? You said something about setting up a place or a building or something.
Well, my thing with Original Big Seven is based on education. Excuse me. I believe that I have to be the guy that go out in my black community and educate my black boys and girls. I believe that I was put here to ride my truck, to go to your door, talk to your parent, and to help you. I'm not here to help Ed. I can't help me anymore. I'm just sick. But at the last of me will be to give the most of me. And I love what I do, but I know there's a greater goal. And the greater goal that I have is, how do I take my little brother and little sister, hold their hand through school, and get them to graduate, and then help them either get a trade, a good job. Just be there, not the parent. I can't raise them as their parent, but to be the support of the family. It's important to me, because one day I woke up, and God knows I didn't realize it. I lived in the 7th Ward, the #1 killing spot in America. Y'all didn't hear that. See, when Louisiana, we was the #1 place in New Orleans for killing. I live in the 7th Ward. I wake up, I see that. The children see that. So you teach. I take the Indian suits, I take the trumpets I get, the bass horns I get, I give it to the children, and I teach them through helping them mask. The masking is a gift from the club. Your offering of us is to go to school and be the most competitive person in the classroom. I'm not talking about go there just get a grade. I'm talking go there compete, and we're going to come and check on you. Because the thing is, I learned with Helen Regis and them guys when I work with them, if we got tutors on hand, we're not giving you every excuse out of this. We help you make it. And if we can help you make it, that's the point that we want. It's not money. Social Aid and Pleasure Club, she's been more broken than probably any time. Because you go to work and you have to figure out how you're going to take your check and spend it on the club and still have money to pay your bills. You teach. Tugger has a body and fender shop. Jaquan is an automotive guy. Eric's cooking. You teach. And you take these tools you get from masking and second lining, and you take it back to the community and teach.
Thank you. Bless you. And the Queen herself.
I wasn't going to say anything. My name is Dorotha Smith Simmons, and I've been going to second lines forever and a day. I'm 81 years young, and there is a difference today for second line as when I was coming up. Parades today last 4 hours.
Awesome.
In the old days, they lasted 8 hours. There was always a problem with the police. That's why they changed it from 8 hours to 4 hours. You asked about second line. Were you asking about where the term come from? No. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. But I have to tell you one story. When Rachel came to interview me, and she told me that she was taking a second line class, I laughed. Nobody takes a second line class. You know, you hear the music move you. And as I tell people, I ask them, can you walk? If you can walk, you can dance. Listen to the music. Let the music move you. And I often hear people say, oh, I can't do that. You're talking about being free. When I dance, I feel free. I'm not the greatest second liner in the world, but don't tell me. I hear the music and I dance. Last Sunday, I'm still aching from last Sunday, the Black Men of Labor. I used to go all the way. I have arthritis and several other conditions. So I go from Sweet Lorraine and come back around and sit outside until my son go get the car and come pick me up. I can't do it like I do. I have never gone 8 hours. I've gone 7.5 hours and passed out on the neutral ground on Basin Street. No, this is true. But one story I have to tell you, and I say to Rachel, this is something that came from Africa. I'm one of the founders of the Jazz and Heritage Festival. I worked at Preservation Hall, and I also worked for the Jazz Festival. And I'm a civil rights activist still. During the summer, when I was working for the Jazz Festival, I would take my vacation time to take brass bands on tour. Every summer, I would take a brass band to Portugal. We played a parade at a chapel across the street from the park that we were gonna play in. And they told us, just march, just go, because you can't cross the street with all the traffic. Well, being from New Orleans and know what we do, I go out in the middle of the street in the traffic and I hold up the traffic and had the band, instead of walking across the street, to play into the park. As we were doing this, I saw these 3 black guys dancing like we dance in New Orleans. So I was so excited to see that. So I went up to them and I say, hey, where are you guys from? And they said, Algiers. Oh, I say, from across the river. And they looked at me and they said, no, the country Algiers. And I felt so silly because they were dancing a second lining like we do. And it's within us to do it. Sunday, I saw a little kid. He must have been 8 or 9 years old. And I just had to stop my second lining and watch him. The moves he was doing. And I think, where did he get those moves? But it was something within. Second lining just come natural to a lot of people. I told Rachel about a friend of mine who was white and worked at Dixieland Hall. But because she hung around musicians and the music, looked at what was going on and how it's going on, she picked up, and her name was Pat Wein, and she worked at Dixieland Hall on Bourbon Street. And she became a great second liner. Yes, you can learn the second line. Just remember, if you can walk, you could dance. Do whatever step you want. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dirty. Okay, Stan.
Good evening, everyone. To the panelists, Buckner and Katina, thank you so much for what you have done for keeping the culture going. And this is for Rachel. A question and a statement. Considering what transpired last night, this is a psychic panacea. The quintessence of what the second line involves. So the question is, and are you aware of the fact Allison Miner, as a manager, one of the first groups that she ever managed were the Allman Brothers?
No.
So all men are brothers. All right? And prior to that, before they transformed into the Allman Brothers, their name was Almond Joy.
No, is that true? Well, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
This is the thing that is so funny with the technology today. We no longer, the phones don't function as a phone. They really function as a computer, and you have at your fingertips. So it doesn't necessarily mean that what you see on the phone or the internet is true, but Allison Miner was from, I believe, Jacksonville, and the Allman Brothers got started in Jacksonville. All men are brothers, and they were started out as the Almond Joys. So my question is, do you, in your research, have you ever seen anything equivalent to what we do here in New Orleans, which is secondary to breathing, which is one of the most essential functions that we have?
The question is, have I ever seen in my research anything similar to, it's just second line?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Oh, okay. Well, in the United, that's much easier to answer. I mean, I guess I'll answer that with a personal story, is that when I attended my first second line in 2007, I had been to graduate school. Like, I had taken studio dance class my whole life, but I had been to graduate school at NYU, I had studied performance traditions from all over the world. And I had taken a fair number of West African dance classes, Afro-Cuban, Afro-Haitian, and learned about those cultures and some of those histories a little bit, right? But when I had attended a second line in New Orleans, I was like, how has this been happening in my country, in the United States of America, for over 100 years? And I've done all this study, and I had no idea. How is that possible? And so in terms of corollaries or similar things happening in the United States, I think you could talk about similar organizations, right? Organizational structures, sort of like mutual aid structures and some of those things. But in terms of that like public parading and the length of time it's been sustained, like personally, no. no, in my studies and travels, I don't want to say that that's absolutely is not happening everywhere because I don't know everything. But I will say that I had that one of the things that drove me to keep researching this is because I was like, well, this is obviously so deep and rich and important and historic and influential. There must be like shelves of books at the library written about this, right? And so when I started my PhD, I was like, well, I'm going to go read all those books about the Second Line because there must be so many. No.
The follow-up, and this is a statement, I've had the opportunity to actually see Tom Dent write his last book, Southern Journey, in longhand, and Kalamu has been on my radar since I was 17. So, as Ernie Cato said, I'm very proud to say that I'm a charity hospital baby.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you. I think it's fitting that you provided our last question and comment too, because we're going to transition now into watching a short video. So 2 of the people who are featured in the book, whose oral histories appear as longer form edited transcripts in between the chapters, 2 of those people have transitioned since between the time that they granted an interview with me until today. And so since they couldn't be here with us in body to be honored, we know they're here in spirit, and we have a short video to honor them. So maybe we want to step off the stage so we can watch the video. And then, thank you.
I was actually concerned that if, we didn't parade, if the culture didn't start back up, then they would use that as an excuse. If we didn't do it right away, then they use it as an excuse to stop it or to change it. And I said, come on, man, we got to do this. We need, I said, let's do it, because unlike most places, our route basically was, a lot of it was still okay. So anyhow, we had the parade. I mean, I really don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember people coming up to me for months afterwards thanking me. And people telling me when the band started playing, they started crying. There was really very emotional. I mean, I'm talking literally for months, people would come up to me, man, thank you. I said, I did it for me. I needed it. I mean, a lot of people said, if this culture hadn't started back up, they would have come back.
Yeah.
That's why they came back, because they couldn't live without the culture.
I want everybody to understand, whoever sees this, whoever has the opportunity to hear this, that the culture that we have here, the culture of Second Line, the culture of brass band, it is nothing to take lightly. It is a very treasured culture. It is, and I get emotional because of the love. If people would only know that it is a part of us, that those of us who may not have the opportunity to ever travel to our motherland, it's a part that was brought there to instill in us. Because if you look at you say you're a dance major, you look at some African dance and compare it to some Second Line. So connected, so connected. The dancing it's about the beat of the music that's tapping and tipping on your heart. It's the beat of the music that's tapping and tipping on your brain. It's the beat of the tapping and tipping of the ambiance of a taste that's in your mouth.
of a good dish that you just ate. That's what it's all about. Right? And my time for transition will come, and I would hope that when I transition, that people would understand that this is true value, not face value, of how I love my culture.
Okay.